and welcome to the next in the series of Yoga for Pet Groomers and the Pleasingly Plump. There are 5 types of poses, basically, in yoga, and they are standing, balancing, back bend, seated, and resting. So we're going to have one pose in each of those categories each session. And you'll learn a new pose, you'll learn if your body likes it or not, if you're ready for it or not. It gives you a little bit of practice and starts moving your joints around in a different kind of way. The first pose I'm going to do is the Garland Pose. This is more or less a squat, but it warms up the hips, it grounds you into the floor, and it helps you with your balance, and it opens up your hips. So you're going to put your feet a little bit wider than hip length apart. Sometimes you can turn out a little bit. When you bend your knees, they should be over your foot, always. So wherever you put your feet, that's the direction your knee should go when it bends. Okay, I like mine out a little bit, just simply because I have a lot of tissue around my hip area. It helps if I open it up just a little and not go straight forward. So I'm grounding myself, I'm spreading my toes out as far as I possibly can. I'm feeling my entire foot on the mat. I'm going to make my pelvis into a neutral position. My shoulders are going to be back, my chin is going to be up, my shoulders away from my ear. We're basically going to squat like this very slowly down and feel the stretch as we go down, and we're going to sit there for just a moment, and then we're going to go a little bit deeper and then come back up. I like to repeat that about 3 to 5 times. Sometimes my hips are more tight than other times. So I like to do it 3 to 5 times, and if I'm really feeling tight, I'll sit down in the squat for a good 3 minutes. For time purposes, we're just going to perform the pose as best we can, but you are more than welcome to hold the pose if you feel it's necessary for you. This is a very good pose to be very mindful of your body. Yoga is a really good practice to get to know you. And that's what all of us are really working on. Get to know you. Get to know how your body moves, how it's formed. It's unique. Every joint you have is uniquely you. No one's put together the same way. Some poses might be impossible for larger women or men. Some might be easier because we have a little bit of extra flesh. But whatever's comfortable for you, that's great. If you have trouble with any of the poses, practice makes perfect. Practice stretches you out. Sometimes it might be a little painful at first. Don't push yourself past your limit. But definitely try it and see if that's something that your body's telling you you might need to stretch out. Pull yourself up. Bend your knees a little bit, and then come up. And that's one version of the Garland Pose. The next pose is called Tree Pose. So we're going to stand with our feet slightly out for balance. This is a balancing pose. We're going to pray, and then you're going to move your foot up the inside of your leg to where you're comfortable. Some people are only comfortable here, perfectly fine. Some people can put their foot really high on their leg. I still have a lot of trouble with that because I've got some extra flesh back here that throws me off balance, and it impedes the way that my foot travels up the inside of my leg. So I'm probably at a calf level right now. If you're at a different level, feel free to bring it up into your groin area. But for me, in my circumstances, this is my skill level. Don't go past your skill level until you're ready, until you feel like you've accomplished the balance. So this is something I'm still working on, but it's really good for balance, and it's really good to center your body on an axis that goes all the way up to the sky. So your foot is grounded, your toes are spread, your shoulders back, your spine's in a neutral position. Your gluteus should not be tight, but it should be fluid because it's carrying the weight of your entire body. Chin up, make a line pulling up from the floor to the ceiling. Now I'm going to bring my foot up to my calf, and we're just going to learn how to balance here for as long as we can. Always release like that, because it releases that muscle. We're going to try it again on the other side. If you need to pause any of these poses because you want to perform them longer, please go right ahead and do so. This is for instructional purposes only. Once you start your yoga practice, you'll find the poses that stretch you the best. We're just going to go through them to identify them first, and then we'll get into more advanced poses later on in a more advanced regimen or session. So I'm going to ground myself in my right leg. Practice my alignment. Be mindful of where my shoulders are, how my spine is, and then I'm going to pull my left foot up onto my calf. If you can't balance at first and you're constantly doing that, no problem. Those muscles need time to strengthen and stretch and be used to grounding your body. There's no shame in not being able to do the pose. There's no shame in not being able to balance. What it is a practice. So you'll find I'm not the best at some poses. I'm better at others. And you'll find that for yourself as well. Always release. And breathe. The next pose we're going to do is a back bend pose. Don't let that scare you. Don't worry, I'm not going to make you do a back bend. But we're going to be on the floor, on our back. This is the bridge pose. So get down here however you're comfortable. You want to try and get your back to touch the entire mat. That means bringing your hips up just a little and then realigning your back so that it's completely flat. Even if you have to pull your pelvis up to the ceiling a little bit, you want a nice line. Then you're going to place your feet about shoulder width apart and put your hands down to your sides with palms open, fingers open. Then we're just going to lift our pelvis as high as it can go and hold it. Come back down again, and then we're going to repeat that. Now, some people like to go up and hold until it's done. And again, I like to pulse sometimes because it relieves the tension if I have tension in my muscles. And the lower back can be really stiff from a long day of grooming or years of grooming if you've never stretched. And if you've got somebody to lick away your sweat, that's even better. I'm going to come back down and release some of that tension. You can wiggle your pelvis a little bit in a circular motion and kind of massage that lower back a little bit. Just kind of wiggle it around and touch it to the mat and make sure it's seated in a really good position. You're getting a release in that lower back. So I'm going to do this one more time. I'm going to roll back down one vertebrae at a time until I can rest my lower back and pelvis onto the mat, and then wiggle it around again. Breathe in. Breathe out. And that's bridge pose. Now for our seated position, our seated pose for today, we're going to do staff pose. This is again stretching out the hamstring, stretching out the lower back, making sure that we're grounded and aligned in our back. We're so bent over all the time when we're lifting heavy dogs, and we're bent over this way all the time, and we're working over a table and doing this. So we want to align everything and make it straight, and then stretch everything out. So we're going to be lowering down onto the mat. We're going to put our legs in front of us. Some people need to relax the feet. Don't worry if you have to bend your legs a little bit. If your hamstrings are very tight, that's perfectly fine. So I like to flex my feet. If you can't do that, you can flex them a little bit or just leave them relaxed. So then we're going to put our hands here. We're going to stretch out our shoulders. We're going to be as tall as we can and be very mindful of our alignment. Chin out, shoulders back, chest up, and ground our seat bones. Rock back and forth until you can feel them on the mat. I'm going to hold that pose. To release from this pose, we're going to take our hands and lightly touch our toes. We're just going to bend over, and it's okay to pull back and then come forward, move your hands back, and go back to staff. You've got to bend your knees a little bit to be in staff to get in the correct position. Feel free to bend your knees a little bit to take some pressure off of your hamstrings. I've seen people that have to either put some weight on their feet in order to achieve it because their hamstrings and their legs are not ready to stretch, and that's fine. As you go, as you practice, you'll release those hamstrings a little bit, elongate the leg, and you'll be able to stretch out without bending the knees. The knees shouldn't be locked. They should always be loose and bouncy and be able to move. And as you get better and better, you can be straighter and more stretchy. Down to stretch in the opposite direction. And that is staff pose. For our resting pose, I'm actually going to include two poses because they do two different things. The first one will be happy baby, and the second one will be corpse. Corpse pose is probably the best thing that you can do for your body after a workout or a stretch. It's just a resting phase, but it's a mindful resting phase. It's not just laying there. You're aware of everything. You're aware of your fingers touching the mat, how your back aligns on the mat, how your feet feel, how your head feels, how your neck feels. So first we're going to do happy baby, which releases all the tension in your lower back. So you go down on the mat. And basically pull your knees to your chest. And if you can, I can't yet because I still have a lot of flesh around my middle, which is perfectly okay. But the main point is to grab your feet and pull them in and tuck your knees to your chest so that you get that nice stretch, like babies holding their feet. So I can kind of do it, but it looks like this. And you get a nice stretch on the inside of the thigh. You put your lower back in a really neutral position, and you can just hold it. And of course, rock yourself up. And if you can't rock yourself up, there's no shame in rolling to the side and picking yourself up that way. And that's happy baby. Our last resting pose, it's an extra added benefit, but I think that corpse pose is necessary after every workout or after every stretch. It lets you reflect on your practice. It lets you reflect on your day. And sometimes it's a good way to clear your mind of all thought and just be mindful of each and every place that your body is touching the mat, which is what I like to do. It's kind of like hypnosis. Be aware of each finger, be aware of each palm, each joint, each place that touches. Just be aware of it, and you can kind of wiggle around in corpse pose and then just be still and just listen to your body. Let it breathe. Let it function. Give it some peace. So this is corpse pose. I always like to seat my spine to make sure that it's aligned. Wiggle down into it a little bit. And you just lay there. Make sure your shoulders are down and your shoulder blades are together on the mat. And just breathe and listen to your body. Breathe methodically and slowly, in through the nose, out through the mouth. You can lay here as long as you want, as long as you think it's necessary to rest yourself. This should be one of your ending poses. It's like being mindful and giving your body precious time to adjust to all the stretches that you've given it. You ask a lot of your shell, you ask a lot of your wrapper by living, and it's only fair that we give just a little bit back to the shell that helps us get around every day and helps us accomplish our tasks. And that is corpse pose. Find yourself in cobbler. Seat yourself on your seat bones. Hold on to your ankles. Elongate your neck. Put your shoulders back. Breathe in. Breathe out. I'll see you next time in next session. Namaste.